Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly, the first of the year. This is January 12th, 2024, and this is the show where I give you guys the top 5 prog headlines for the week, introduce you guys to some new prog singles, and keep you up to date with what's happening here on Nathan on Shuffle. And it's a little bit of a supersized episode covering a lot of the news from the last couple weeks and some of the news that's going to be fueling the first part of this year, so we'll see how that all shakes out. A lot of interesting news from a lot of cool different bands. So hopefully you're into that and hopefully you're excited for the news today. I always love doing this. This is a weekly feature for those of you who are new to the channel perhaps. This is something I like to do to keep you guys informed about what's happening in the world of progressive rock, and I would really appreciate a subscription. If you want to subscribe, that would really help the channel and help me to gauge the interest level and to know that this is a show worth keeping on the channel. So thank you guys so much, and let's get into the news headlines. So I always like to start with the new releases for the week, and to me the first big prog release of the year came out today. So this is Neal Morse and his album The Restoration, Joseph Part 2. It's a sequel album to Joseph Part 1 that came out last year, so only a few months later he's already coming out with the sequel to the first. So this is like a 2-part series that tells the complete story, the biblical story of Joseph and, you know, the Technicolor Dreamcoat and all of that stuff. Done in big, epic, progressive rock fashion. It's a big rock opera, if you will. He leans a little bit into the musical theater kind of side to his sound like he did on Jesus Christ the Exorcist, but I feel like there's a lot of meaty prog stuff to dive into with this release, and a lot of guest vocalists. You've got Nick DiVirgilio, Ted Leonard, Matt Smith, Ross Jennings, Jake Livgren, and you also got a couple of guest instrumentalists. I believe Alan Morse plays some guitar on this, so a really cool collection of songs that really delve deep into Neal's past history and gives you a lot of flavor. I'm going to be doing a full-on review this week for it, but I really recommend you check it out. Of course, check out Part 1 first, because I feel like Part 2 only really makes sense if you hear it after hearing Part 1. So a really great series of albums that showcases Neal Morse's talents and that he has a lot more to show in the field of progressive rock. So definitely a highly anticipated release for me. You all know, if you've been following the channel for a long time, that Neal Morse is my favorite artist in the progressive rock scene, so really exciting to get a new release from him that's even better than I was anticipating, so really fun. Item number 2, Gentle Giant announced a new Steven Wilson remix of The Missing Piece. This is their 1977 album. Kind of an interesting transitional album in a sense, because it was halfway getting into a more accessible direction for them. They're kind of morphing their sound a little bit, which would be even more fully realized on Giant for a Day that would come later. But there's still definitely touchstones of their progressive rock style present on The Missing Piece, so it makes for a really cool, interesting album. It feels like the first half is more of the shorter, streamlined, more poppier effort that they're going for, and then the second half of the record delves more into their progressive pieces. So it's kind of a tale of two halves for this album, in my estimation at least. So this album is going to be re-released here with a Steven Wilson remix, released on CD, Blu-ray, and colored vinyl through Chrysalis Records, coming out on February 23rd. So this was their 9th studio release, following off the heels of Interview from 1976, which one of my favorite Gentle Giant albums I love, that's really out there, really progressive, really does a lot of different interesting things. So it's interesting they switched up their sound a little bit, moving into The Missing Piece. The album was recorded at Relight Studios in Hilvenbeek in the Netherlands by Derek Shulman, Ray Shulman, Carrie Minier, Gary Green, and John Weathers as the lineup here. So really cool. It'll be interesting to see if they continue forward with this remakes campaign into Giant for a Day and Civilian, which are the next 2 records, which aren't as highly regarded by progressive rock fans, but have some interesting things on there that I think are worth revisiting, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, definitely one I'm going to pick up, and I'm excited for. I think The Missing Piece is a little bit of an underrated record, so that should be a really cool one to look forward to. Now moving into some newer stuff, item number 3, a new band, North Sea Echoes, which features Ray Alder and Jim Matheos of Fate's Warning, are announcing their debut album, Really Good Terrible Things. and sharing their first single, their first kind of taste of what to expect from the album. This album is due out February 23rd this year via Metal Blade, and the first track is called Open Book, which will be in my Prog singles list, which I'll share with you towards the end, and you can always check out the links to the YouTube videos for these singles in the description. So, but yeah, these are two guys who are well known for their contributions in Fate's Warning. Ray Alder just did a recent solo album, so his vocals have been out there on some new releases, so should be a really cool album to check out, especially for fans of Fate's Warning, to get to see these musicians work together. And it says that it serves up the kind of seductive melancholy that Fate's Warning fans will recognize. Different approach here. Vocals are delivered with a sort of nostalgic sadness, and the guitar work is layered in such a way to feel dreamlike. Rich sonic landscapes, visiting places haunting, beautiful, spectral, and secret. So it seems like it's not quite in the like heavier progressive metal direction that Fate's Warning can get into sometimes, maybe a bit more melancholy and a bit more dreamlike, but it should be an interesting release nonetheless, and you can hear a sample of what to expect from that first single, Open Book, like I mentioned. Item number 4, another new band that features some familiar faces. This is Whom Gods Destroy with Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot. They're sharing their first single this weekend called In the Name of War. The debut album is called Insanium. This is coming out on March 15th via Inside Out Music. Just another supergroup in progressive metal. It's kind of coming off the heels of Sons of Apollo, which featured Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot, and also, of course, Mike Portnoy, who is now in Dream Theater back again in the fold. So it seems like Sons of Apollo is probably not going to continue, I would imagine, since Mike Portnoy is going to be focusing all his attention on Dream Theater. So it seems like the remaining members are kind of sparking up a new project here to kind of satiate their need for progressive metal. So a dynamic first single here that showcases what to expect from the album. Just heavy, hard progressive rock, progressive metal, I should say, in the vein of like a Symphony X, and of course Sons of Apollo is good reference points. Aside from Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot, you've also got vocalist Gino Jelusek on the record, and an interesting rhythm section of Yas Nomura and drummer Bruno Valverde. So an interesting conglomeration of musicians. They sound really tight, and this should be a really impressive album of progressive metal. So really looking forward to that and seeing what they do in the future here. Number 5 item, I wanted to talk a little bit about a roundup of Mike Portnoy news. He played with Umphrey's McGee when they celebrated their 25th anniversary. They're a jam band that are really proficient and play some really great stuff, some extended instrumental stuff. They've been known to dabble in progressive rock as well. So it was cool seeing Mike Portnoy play with those guys, and they played a generous amount of covers as well. So it's cool to get Portnoy's take on covers like Pink Floyd's In the Flesh and Another Brick in the Wall, the Beatles' You Never Give Me Your Money, and Abacab by Genesis. And they did an encore with Spinal Tap's Big Bottom and the Rush instrumental YYZ. Really cool stuff. There's videos online of his contributions with Umphrey's McGee. Just a fun night of playing. I believe there was 2 sets involved, and they played a lot of material. So it'll be interesting to see what moves forward with this, if Mike Portnoy returns to play with Umphrey's McGee, or if this was just a one-off experiment. It seems like more of that, more of a one-off, just fun thing to fill in for a show, but it was really cool, and cool to see the videos of this interesting collaboration. And also there's a video, I believe the service is called Drumeo, that Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy playing some Nickelback music. I thought this was kind of funny. Mike Portnoy in the video even talks about that he almost played with Nickelback, but it didn't pan out, unfortunately. But he plays a song from Nickelback that he had never heard before. Basically they give the track without the drums for him to listen to, and he just kind of invents his own drum part over it. And it's really fascinating to see Mike Portnoy come up with the drum part and then compare it with the actual drum part from the Nickelback song. So just a cool little YouTube video that I think a lot of you would enjoy who are fans of Mike Portnoy. So I'll link that also in the description for those of you who might want to check that out. And then a couple of quick hits. Those are the main 5 items, but some interesting news from John Mitchell. John Mitchell, who's known for being in Arena and It Bites and Frost, a very proficient guitarist and vocalist. He's been announced as the new guitarist in the David Cross Band. Of course, David Cross is the former King Crimson violinist. So he's joining Cross along with keyboard player Sheila Maloney, bassist Mick Paul, and their drummer. Should be a really cool thing to witness. It looks like there's some live dates coming in Poland in February, so should be really cool. And then also, John Mitchell is doing a solo gig in London, London show on April 6th. Evening with John Mitchell, Songs and Stories live and acoustic, which he toured around Europe at the end of last year. So that should be cool to check him out. So some interesting live stuff coming from John Mitchell. And he's also teased that he may be coming out with a new album this year. He wrote on his Facebook page on New Year's Day, "The thing I'm looking forward to next year is getting the guitar out again, putting pen to paper, and pressing record. I will do a new album in 2024, come what may, and in whatever capacity that might be." So not sure what the project this will be for, if this is a Lonely Robot album that he'll be doing, or just under his own name, John Mitchell, or perhaps with one of his other projects that he works with. But should be cool to see more activity from John Mitchell, who's one of my favorite modern prog musicians. Also, Dream the Electric Sleep's Matt Page announces a new solo album coming out this year. I really loved Dream the Electric Sleep's album from last year. It placed pretty highly on my favorites list for the year. So it's cool to see that Page is coming out with a new solo album called Apocalypse Garden, coming out March 5th. He says it's a very eclectic album, and I would say it's in the progressive pop category with some alternative rock and Americana folk mixed in, probably closest to Tears for Fears, maybe Peter Gabriel mixed with Joni Mitchell. So should be cool to hear from Matt Page, who of course is the vocalist and guitarist for Dream the Electric Sleep, an album I'm anticipating. And then I Am the Morning, another group that I really love, a duo, Mariana Simkina and Gleb Kolyadin. They've announced a show in London for February, and they're going to have Randy McStein as a support act, who's been playing with Porcupine Tree, has some really cool solo material, has played with Nick DiVirgilio and Jonas Reingold in a group called The Fringe. So he's been around the block, and it's cool to see him supporting I Am the Morning, a great duo who performs some like chamber prog kind of stuff. Really great music, and should be a really fun time. So those are the prog headlines that I have for you guys for this week. And getting into some of the prog singles, it's an extended list also for the prog singles. We've got the Pineapple Thieves' Every Trace of Us, another song from their upcoming album. Their album is called It Leads to This, which comes out February 9th, so definitely one to check out. I really like them. More in that, Porcupine Tree type vein, a little bit more laid back and a bit more accessible than your all full out and out prog stuff. Item 2 here, Caligula's Horse, The Storm Chaser. They have an album coming out really soon, in a couple weeks here. The Storm Chaser is a fantastic track from their new record. Definitely one I'm going to be talking about on the channel, but definitely check out the single. Caligula's Horse is one of the premier progressive metal bands that are out in the scene, and this is a really heartfelt, good track from them that has some really great performances. I have Gentle Giants, 2 Weeks in Spain, the Steven Wilson remakes from their upcoming Missing Piece. Of course, this is a classic track from 1977, but freshened up a bit by Steven Wilson, so I wanted to put that in the track list here. North Sea Echoes and their track Open Book. I talked about them, that group featuring Jim Matheos and Ray Alder. And then Whom Gods Destroy in the Name of War, which is the supergroup featuring Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot. So it's a really heavy, cool opening track there. Steve Hackett has a new track from his upcoming album. This is Wherever You Are. The album is called The Circus and the Night Whale, coming out February 16th. So another great taster for that. Some really cool progressive rock going on there. I have Dave Kersner and his track Dirty Girl. He's an artist that comes out with some really cool material, has plenty of tracks coming out from this album, Heart Landmines Volume 1, which I believe has already been released, but this is a new video for one of the songs from it. Really cool track, almost like in a Steely Dan kind of vibe, you know, something more along those lines, but really good nonetheless, so something worth checking out. And then finally, another heavier track, a more progressive metal direction. Turbulence have a new track called Hybrid. Turbulence is a lesser known progressive metal band that I just absolutely adore. They came out a couple years ago with one of my favorite records, called Frontal, that I really recommend, that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but they have a new album coming out this spring, which will be called Binary Dream. So cool to see them. I think they're signed now to Frontier Records, so a bit of a bigger deal than what they had in Frontal, but should be a cool one to check out if you like some really great progressive metal, maybe in the style of Haken or even Temic that came out last year. So really cool stuff there. And so that's the list of stuff I have for you guys. And as for the channel, as I've mentioned on prior episodes, I'm doing a Jethro Tull month. So I've done a couple episodes already. I did a reaction with Jana to Thick as a Brick Part 2 that we had a lot of fun doing. So that's a really cool one to check out. I also did the beginner's guide to Jethro Tull, where I talked a little bit about some good entry points if you're new to the band, and just a little bit of background and history for them. Those I hope will develop and become a little bit better as I go through, because I plan to do a monthly prog band and do a different beginner's guide each month, and I'm still dialing in on how I want those to go. So it's a little bit of a rough cut, but I think it was still interesting, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I did a vinyl haul episode this week where I talked about the albums that I've gotten and picked up in the last few months, so that was a lot of fun. And this next upcoming week, I plan to get back into the swing of doing new album spotlights. The first one being Neal Morse's The Restoration Joseph Part 2, which I'm really excited to talk about. So that should be coming out on Tuesday. And then I hope for the next Jethro Tull video to come out this upcoming Thursday, where I revisit my rankings of Jethro Tull albums and basically run down where they're at now and slot in Rock Flute, which wasn't a part of my original rankings. So should be a lot of cool content. A typical Jana Prog Song Sunday coming out this Sunday as well, reacting to a classic track. So I think you guys will like that. And so a lot of fun stuff ahead on the channel. I'm excited for everything that's coming for these monthly themed months that we're doing. We're featuring a different prog band every single month. Should be a lot of fun, but I'm definitely keeping up with the new music as well, with regular New Music Weekly shows and my new album spotlights to keep you up to date with what's happening now in progressive rock music. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you appreciated this episode, and I hope to catch you guys in future episodes this year. It's going to be a good one. So thank you guys, and enjoy the music out there. Bye everybody.